outdoors with turkey. We told the person the best. Not a potential difference.
That was locked too.
Yeah.
It wasn't locked.
Yeah, I never know.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah, right.
I always think they should.
Camera.
Yeah, towards the camera, so
Yeah.
that
Right.
people online. And, I mean, I don't even know.
100.
I'm not sure that I've ever known anybody
It is, yeah.
these things. I mean, they're
Yeah.
legal requirement that you have to have them, but
Yeah.
they're not.
And I would say when I have been online, you can barely, messages, you definitely can't read
Here,
the pictures.
and we had these way before we.
You don't have anything to worry about.
It was locked. That's good. Sit on the door. Are you locked out too?
Yeah, I got locked out, yeah.
Yeah.
It could be that the presenters like it because they like to address us by name.
Yeah, right. No, that's fair. Right. We're, you know, open it up.
Yeah.
In the garage.
Marie,
Oh,
how are you doing?
Good, good. Wow.
there's me.
Happy New Year.
Good New Year, yes, right, yeah.
Happy New Year.
Time ago.
It does like a,
Yeah.
that's true, yeah, I know,
Hi.
yeah.
Okay, everybody, we're gonna get started. Okay.
All right. I'll roll that.
Yes. All right. Omari Davis,
Here,
Ann Dreyer,
Here.
Robert Dudka, Andrew Backler, Alex Foster. Carmela Ham is excused. Ray Finley is not here. Jerry Laporte,
Here.
Joan Lawrence. Here. Rebecca Meyer is on the way. Katie Myers.
Here.
Mark Turnbull is here. Andrew Wenchel
here,
and Dick Woodruff.
Here.
All right. Okay, welcome to the January 15th, 2025 Historical Affairs meeting. Effective July 1st, 2024, updated state legislation continues to require certain county board commissions, including the HALRB, to have in-person forum to conduct its monthly business. HALRB hearings are provided in a hybrid environment, both in person and streamed online. Members of the public may attend and participate either virtually or in person. For members of the board joining us virtually this evening, please join us via the Microsoft Teams link. Please keep your device muted until you would like to speak, but ensure your video is turned on and you are visible during the entire meeting. For members of the public joining us this evening, today's meeting is available to stream from the county website via a Microsoft Teams link. There is also a dial-in phone option for those who wish to use it. Please keep your device muted and video turned off until you're called upon to speak. For public speakers not sponsoring items on the agenda, pre-registration to speak online at today's hearing was required. Speaker slips are available in the front of the room. I will call on you to speak after the presentation. The meeting chat is active for participants who need technical assistance only and should not be used for discussion, public comment, questions about agenda items, or requests for more information. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public testimony period. All voting will be done by a call of the roll. Lastly, this is a public forum. Today's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to Freedom of Information Act requirement. Okay. Well, that's 7 minutes.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, does anyone have any questions about the December minutes? Okay. Okay, does anyone want to move to approve those? A second. Okay, now can you call the roll?
Okay, please respond yes if you support the motion as presented. Amari Davis,
Yes.
Dan Dreyer,
Abstain.
Alex Foster, Ray Hanley,
Yes.
Jerry Laporte,
Yes.
Joan Lawrence,
Yes.
Rebecca Meyer, Katie Myers,
Yes.
Andrew Winchell,
Yes.
and Dick Woodruff.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries.
Okay. And the administrative COAs are just there for your staff has approved those already. And we'll move on to the Queen City marker review.
John?
All right. Thank you, everyone. So to kick the night off, we are going to do a review of the draft text for the proposed marker to go to commemorate the Queen City neighborhood of Arlington. To get us started, a quick project overview. Back in the summer of 2024, HPP staff were asked to begin work on the development of the historic marker to commemorate the Queen City neighborhood. Staff recommended the creation of a double-faced cast aluminum marker to match existing historical markers across the county. By January 7th, staff had completed a draft text for the marker. The current text was a collaborative effort between the Black Heritage Museum of Arlington, the HPP team, and the HALRB Markers Subcommittee. Now, in conformity with the standards of previous aluminum historical markers created by the county, the Queen City marker text would range from about 100 to 120 words. Due to space limitations, the narrative outline of the marker was limited in scope to focus on the neighborhood's origins, composition, and destruction, as well as the survival of the community. Following a review from the HALRB Marker Subcommittee, HPP staff incorporated several of the recommended changes, while refraining from incorporating others until final review by the HALRB tonight. And if you're not familiar with the double-faced aluminum signs, we have an example of one on the slide right in front of us. Now, here you will see the text as it has been presented so far. So this is primarily the text that was handed off to the marker subcommittee after both our staff and Dr. Scott Taylor of the Black Heritage Museum of Arlington had a chance to look at it. Dr. Taylor is in attendance with us tonight, and we're very happy to have his support on this marker. Now, for the folks in the marker subcommittee who are looking this over, like I said, you'll notice some changes have already been incorporated, others we're just leaving off for the time being. The original draft that we sent to the marker subcommittee also included a sentence that has since been removed. We did this because after receiving comments from the marker subcommittee, we realized that on the whole, the draft text that we had a narrative flow that we were very happy with, but potentially we had room to add details in different locations. So one of the things we hope that the HALRB would consider is actually what, if anything, we would want to add to the marker. We're in a fun position right now where we could potentially add about 20 more words of content. So a couple of examples of things that we are looking at that could be plugged into the larger sign narrative if we would like. First off, we can highlight the marker's proposed location. Right now, we are looking at placing the marker somewhere near the intersection of Columbia Pike and South Joyce Street. See the location right here. We've landed on this location as our preferred spot for the marker because this is one of the few places within the historical bounds of Queen City where you still get regular foot traffic. The sidewalk also leads to a bus stop, which allows for commuter access to the sign as well. And because the road names, South Joyce and Columbia Pike, are actually reflective of the historical intersection of South Joyce and Columbia Pike, which you would have seen in the historic Queen City. Now, the actual road would have been a little further away from the modern day intersection, so it's not exact, but we can highlight this location and what would have been found there in the heyday of Queen City. Another suggestion that came up as a possible content addition was spending more time highlighting the connection between the Queen City neighborhood and the Freedmansville, the Freedman's Village community. This is of course, crucial piece to understanding how Queen City was created. And because it is not a Queen City marker per se, we were not sure how much of that information needed to be included in the text. Obviously, it is an important part of that history, so we might want to consider going in that direction for our additional comments. And lastly, there are plenty of other buildings, churches, businesses, a number of points of interest for a sign reader that we could choose to highlight. Another point of interest that came up was the Queen City Fire Station. Right now, we've done a lot of work for the interpretation of Fire Station 8, and this would be a good piece of common ground to perhaps bring in some more of that fire station history to our public interpretation sites. That really sums up our overview of the project so far. Before we hand it off to the HALRB to discuss, Dr. Taylor, did you have anything you wanted to add?
You're on mute.
You're muted, Scott.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Perfect.
you can.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds great. The only thing is that I wish that, aside from the sign, we could build one of those markers that actually have actual pictures on them, so people can see them. Like the ones that are at Drew Elementary and there's a couple of places in Arlington. But other than that, it sounds wonderful. It's long overdue, if you ask me. So I'm happy about it. Sounds great.
Oh yeah, very, very much appreciated. And that is another good point to bring up while you're considering what could and could not potentially go into this particular marker. We should not consider this marker to be the be-all, end-all of Queen City interpretation that we're going to get in that area. We know from meetings with some of our federal partners that the National Park Service has also been asked to include Queen City interpretation with some of the work that they're doing for the upcoming 9/11 Visitor Center that's also going up in that area. So we do not need to capture everything on this sign because more Queen City interpretation will be coming. So right now it's just about prioritizing what we want to put together for this specific text. But that's a great point because I think there's a lot more room for interpretation of this neighborhood in that area.
Thoughts on this text and maybe the full additions? So,
I have a question for Dr. Taylor. Was there one of the proposed subject matter texts that you preferred over the others?
Give me a little more of what you're saying. I'm sorry. I'm not understanding everything you're saying.
Okay, so we can add some additional text could be added to this marker, and it had been proposed that there possibly a reference to the wood frame movie theater, or to Freedman's Village, or to the Queen City Fire Station. I think they're all great topics.
Yeah, they are. It's a lot that goes along. I mean, the fire station burned down. I don't know how it did, but it burned down. It was sort of in the domain how the people lost their housing. It sort of came through there and didn't tell people that they were coming. They didn't know what date. So it's a sad story. But I don't know how you would word that. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, it's great that it's being acknowledged. I think it's going on 83 years now. 82, I think. But that's the hard one. That's a hard one because you want people to know that it was two things. I mean, going on. I mean, people had lost their housing, but we were also upon World War II, and we needed the Pentagon. So it's two things that are sort of devastating. But I don't know how you put all that in there. You know what I'm saying? I wish that Mr. Vollen was on here because he's the last living resident there, and I think he's 90. He's been 94 this year, and he could probably explain it better than I. But it's just the wording is good, but I guess people will have to know in some kind of way that this was a pretty devastating thing. And we know about the trailers that came through that that were put up near that area also, Johnston Hill, for people who were displaced for a couple years. And there's a lot going on back there. There was a graveyard back there. There was a hall that had the church. There was I forgot the name of that church. It's right there on Columbia Pike. My mind is, I didn't have coffee today. There was a church back there too. Who said something?
Is it the Mount Olive that you're referring to?
No, not Mount Olive. St. John's. St. John's was back there too. And I just found a picture of one of the churches there. I just found one like maybe a couple of weeks ago. Picture of the actual church that was there. But there was a hall there that they had, they had parties there and different other events, and then they would have the church on Sunday. So it was a thriving neighborhood, and it wasn't, the people weren't moved off there for any other reason but making way for the Pentagon. But it was, sort of the way that they did it. But like I say, it's wonderful. But people need to know, what happened, and so I'm glad to see this happening.
Jerry, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I had several comments. I saw the previous draft, and one change that was made here is, the development happened in two stages. First of all, there was some members of the congregation that bought 2 acres, and that was called Queen City. And then another developer bought like 27 acres, I think. So that was called East Arlington. Okay, so eventually it was almost 30 acres, but this is inaccurate to say that members of the congregation purchased about 30 acres. The previous drafts had it right. Okay, and the new draft sort of commingled the two facts, and so it's now factually wrong. Okay, so we need to fix that. Secondly, I think I was the one who suggested that we explain what Freedman's Village is, because although everybody around this table might, when we write these historic markers, you have to assume that somebody's just passing by on the sidewalk, even from Kansas, okay? And they wouldn't necessarily know what Freedman's Village is. That's why I suggested that we incorporate in here an explanation of what Freedman's Village was, so that, a common person going by would understand. That's, the level of understanding we try to get on these historic markers. We don't assume these are only being read by people who are familiar with Arlington history. And then another thing is the earlier draft, the church, Mount Olive Baptist Church, had another name, and it changed its name, and and today we call it Mount Olive Baptist Church, but it actually even moved into the District of Columbia for a while, then it came back. Okay, so to build a new church, Mount Olive Baptist Church, the way it's drafted now is really not correct, because it had a different name then. And I think in the previous draft we said, which later became known as, and I think it'd be better to include that language, because here it makes it sound, there's a lot of commas and stuff going in here. I know there's a lot to pack in, but I think now it's kind of misleading, because it makes it look like this was the name of the church at the time, and it wasn't. And then the last sentence, I think we usually try to just have historic facts. I'm one of the people that likes to just include historic facts and not what I would kind of call nostalgia in these things. So I think the last sentence, the fact is that many residents relocated to other Black communities elsewhere in Arlington. That's the historic fact we want to put on here. And then language like Queen City's legacy continued as, I mean, what does that mean? I mean, it's really not conveying factual information. It just kind of nostalgia. And then say many of which exist today, I would cross that out too, because this is being erected in 2025, but 30 years from now, that's just like a teaser, okay? I mean, if you want to say that, you need to say which ones exist today, or you have to get more. You can't just tease people and say, well, in 2025, some Black community existed. It just kind of leaves a big question mark there. So I think we tried to avoid these kind of statements and historic markers that just don't present historic facts.
I'm going to agree with just about everything you just said and add a couple of my own points, which is that I think that if we do add the sentence about Freedman's Village as an encampment for refugee slaves, that sentence has to also say what happened to Freedman's Village and make the connection. Those people wound up in the city and then they wound up dispersed elsewhere. That's one point. The other point is this language about the government exercising eminent domain to demolish Queen City. The other marker that you sent us as an example to use the word that the government seized. I think that's a better and more accurate description of what happens in these situations. Of course, it's eminent domain. That's a political, bureaucratic, legal term for throwing people out of their homes. Displacing whatever. So I think it's to have that power seized. Otherwise, I think it looks.
I'm lost. I can't hear a thing.
Just like to agree with that this is long overdue. Okay, and when we did the plan, for the HALRB plan for the next historic preservation, we talked about, and this is just typically the type of history that's really long been neglected, never reflected in historic markers that really needs to be told. So I think it's fantastic that we're finally talking about the history that really happened for people.
And did you?
Yeah, I also gave some comments before, but I agree. I think it would be nice to make it a little clearer that this happened really abruptly. I think with just a few weeks notice, and maybe something about, it does say in 1942, but something about wartime, just to give a little more context. I think the way that the last sentence tries to, I guess, end on a really positive note, but it seems like maybe more positive than it really was. The memories continued, but this was actually a really bad thing for the residents, So I know there's a lot of other things we could add, and space is limited, but maybe a little bit more context would be nice to the extent we can fit it.
I feel very much the way that both Jerry and Richard do, but I think I'd go even a little further. I think that the message that has to be conveyed here is that this is a community that had suffered in slavery, had had been in a camp, basically, that they turned into a town, Freedman's Village. They were forcibly removed from that. And then 50 years, or however many years later, 50 years later, they were forcibly removed again without any kind of consideration about what was going on. That's not conveyed here. This is so gently worded that I don't think we're being honest still about what happened in the history. It doesn't take but a word or two change to give that sense. Seize is one good word to choose, but another is to say that, they were pushed out of Freedman's Village for the expansion of the cemetery. And then that same community was forced again to disperse on very short notice or something like that. But I agree with Jerry that it has to be very factual. And you don't need to say the legacy, because I don't know that the legacy of Queen City, the memory of it is, the legacy of Queen City is ignoring our Black population and pushing them around whenever we want to. And that's, yeah, that legacy continues too. But I'm not sure that's what's being referred to here, actually.
So that's the dilemma of the wording, because like you said, you can't flower this. And you have to tell the truth, but you don't want to be brutal. You want to be too brutal about it, but just state the facts. People were forced off. Um, they told some of the people they said it would happen, but they didn't tell the date. So you imagine waking up one morning with your coffee and there's a bulldozer in your on the other side of your house. And then thank God for Eleanor Roosevelt. She was the one who got those trailers that was set out by Johnson Hill to house these people for a little while. But it was devastating. And if you see some of the pictures, the houses, people built these houses with their own hands. So they were proud of what they did. And these were proud people. And I have a couple of pictures of some of the people there. I mean, they're dressed immaculately in these very modest homes, and just to have something taken from them like that, people need to know exactly. It was devastating. It was hurtful. I mean, we're going through it now with these people in California. Thank God they have insurance. But you just imagine somebody just uprooting you, taking, you have to leave your things. Your house is just knocked over, knocked down. It was devastating.
I just one point of clarification. Based off the comments received, it sounds like no one's really interested in adding a sentence about the wood frame movie theater or the fire station, that it should be more focused on the village.
I
Okay.
think that's more.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Actually clarifying just what really happened there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
clarifying the eviction.
And that it happened twice.
If you want to, I did like the movie theater and the fire station because I think other than just listing homes, businesses, churches, the movie theater and the fire station really gave it like more of it's a community sense. But you could easily add that with just in that
Right.
list you have there. If there's, that's like 5 words. And then, yeah, it sounds like everyone really wants to add more about Freeman's Village, being pushed out of Freeman's Village and being pushed out then again. Does anyone else have any more?
Well, the accuracy about the 30 acres, I think is important.
Clarifying statement there, yeah.
Yeah, I would say, I think this isn't an addition as much as it's like a misogynist a little bit. The language that you were talking about that describes the neighborhood needs to needs to convey the impression that this was a place where people lived and had community pride and that. And I think if you had that there was theater there and some other specifics, that's going to do that. But that's really important because there's both the loss, but there's what was lost, importance.
I know this word limit that possibly a reference to this is built by the residents.
I think it's kind of been conveyed already, but essentially, I think just to piggyback on what Grace said, essentially, this is a community that was built from nothing twice. It was essentially taken away twice. I mean, it's kind of already been said in some of the language. I think that could also be sort of put in there too, that it's, literally like from nothing and raised twice, which is, yeah.
Anyone else have any more specific comments on the actual wording? There's a lot of comments. Do we want to hear it again at the full meeting, or do we want to have staff and maybe the subcommittee be given rein to work on it more?
Well, I think that's probably a good idea to
Yeah.
have that stand there. And look at it.
Yeah.
Be nice
Yeah.
to see what it's like.
Is there a
There's-
If you want to.
Yeah, it's the,
There's not a timetable at present. Right now, we're just trying to keep all aspects of the project moving at the same time. Like we said before, we don't have that exact location just yet because, from the area of the map, yeah, it's and a lot of federal land as well. So if we can move the text forward quickly or at a quicker pace, then it'll make it easier to have that physical product that we can then send forward to our partners in DPR or our federal partners if this utility check requires the sign to be moved in each one way or another.
did you say you have a general idea? That's
Yeah.
a wasteland.
So if you, I'm gonna go back to that.
Wild dogs.
So
This slide.
yeah, you look on the Google Maps slide here, you'll see we've circled a broad area in red. So that is South Joy Street. At the northern end, you'll see where Columbia Pike starts to meet it. We had pinpointed that location because you actually do have a sidewalk that does get pedestrian traffic, largely because there is a bus stop that leads either to the Pentagon or up to the National Cemetery. So, with some of these double-faced markers in Arlington, we'll see them near roadways. We'll see them in places where really the only way you can interact with them is if you pull your car off the road and get out. And we don't want to encourage that specifically in this area. So if we have an area that does get regular foot traffic and that is within the bounds and possibly even has some vestige of the neighborhood in terms of existing roads or where existing roads once stood, that meets a lot of our criteria for where we would want a sign to go. But again, like we're saying, if it's just a few feet one way or a few feet other way, it could be an active construction zone. So actually having that physical product put forward as something that people want to put up in a prominent location, I think will be very helpful in getting that good location around here.
So I think our options are we can make a motion to approve with that as we discussed to be worked on by staff and maybe the subcommittee, or we could not make a motion.
Yeah. I think in terms of moving it forward quicker, the first option would maybe help with getting it faster on the timeline, but it's really up to you all if you want to see it again.
I'd like to move that we conditionally approve the marker based on staff and the marker subcommittee working on the language to come up with what we and circulate it just everybody for final approval.
Second.
All right. Great motion by Jones, so we will call roll on that.
Sorry, Nan.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, please respond yes if you support the motion as presented. Omari Davis,
Yes.
Dan Dreyer,
Yes.
Ted Kuzma, Alex Foster,
Yes.
Ray Hanley,
Yes.
Jerry Laporte,
Yes.
Joan Lawrence,
Yes.
Rebecca Meyer,
Yes.
Katie Myers,
Yes.
Andrew Wenchel,
Yes.
and Dick Woodruff.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, so for our next, I just have the Elwood Site Scan project. So we have the project team here. Who all would like to join us at the table?
Yeah, as far as, yeah, is it all right with
Yes,
here?
absolutely. And then, Lauren, have you logged in? Since the beginning?
I just logged in. I think you accepted me.
Dr. Taylor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Dr. Taylor, would you like to say something?
I can't hear.
Did you want to say something?
Well, just I don't know who was talking. I can't really see that well there, but he was right. He said something about Mount Olive was once, I think it was called Antioch, but I don't know if they were called that when they bought the bought the land. But I think they were Mount Olive, but they were, I think, Antioch Baptist Church, and then changed their name to Mount Olive. So whoever said that, they were right about that. That's all.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us and for
Right.
working on the project with us. I really appreciate it.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So before I turn things over to the Melwood site plan project. Okay. I want to share a few notes to provide some context for tonight's discussion. Lauren, who you probably guessed couldn't make it to the meeting tonight, she's on a well-deserved vacation, has been the team member that's been working on this project. So I might not be able to answer everything, but I will certainly try my best. And if there are questions that I can't answer, the project team can't answer, I'll talk to Lauren afterwards and see if we can get an answer from her. But tonight, the Melwood project team is here to present an overview of the project as requested by Nan during one of the site plan review committee meetings, or the SPRC meeting. Nan and then Dick are both of the HALRB representatives for this SPRC. And so it came up at one of those meetings that they'd like to see a full presentation by the project team at one of the full HALRB meetings. Quick reminder, this project does involve the Nellie Custis School Building, which currently has a local historic district application in our study queue. The item tonight is informational only, so there won't be a vote or anything like that at the end of it. The team's just really interested in learning about your feedback on the project and sharing fuller details with you all. And we do have a public speaker tonight as well, so they'll share their remarks after the presentation is concluded and before the item is before the full board. Okay?
Can I ask a question about the process?
Sure.
The county website that lists the schedule of events for this project lists these folks coming before several different commissions. And I think the appearance before our commission is one of the only ones that's listed as informational only. And I'm wondering if the other commissions, like the Transportation Commission, have some additional authority or jurisdiction over this that we don't have. That we were just getting this, for our own information, but not having any
Like a vote.
real say in the matter.
Answer that.
A little bit. So hi everyone, I'm Kevin Lamb with the planning division, and I am sort of taking this project through the public review process. So with site plans, we typically go to like the Transportation Commission, Planning Commission, and Housing Commission, where they do take up a vote on the project for recommendation to the county board. However, there are aspects of a particular project that may be of interest to other commissions. For instance, this project is also being heard at the Disability Advisory Commission as an informational item. So kind of these commissions are, they don't technically vote on the recommendation to the county board as we typically do with the other commissions. I'm not sure if there's kind of government structure or if it's kind of a procedural requirement, but that's kind of how we handle this.
Okay, well, that's interesting, given that this is the only commission that has statutory regulatory authority, which is a law. But the other commissions don't. Right? Am I right about that? Okay, so, well, I don't want to obstruct the process further. Suggest that maybe we ought to take a vote on it at some point.
Oh, we can talk about that as staff, but I think procedurally that's never, I don't think, been done for a site plan project before, but we can take it.
This one has a little more significance for us because we actually have requested a study as to the historic importance of the building, which is proposed to be demolished.
I'll make note, but in the interest of time, I would like to give the project team a chance to give their presentation. So
They're Or enough to come.
You ready?
Absolutely.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lauren Riley with Walsh Lucci. Your eyes do not deceive you. I'm here for something other than Barcroft tonight. So we probably will have it up. We'll have it up to date for you at the Barcroft next meeting. But our firm represents Melwood and Wesley Housing for the 750 23rd Street project. I've got Scott Gibson with Melwood here tonight, as well as Taylor Stout with Wesley Housing. And to give you a little bit of background as to where we are in the 4.1 site plan process, you all may remember we went through a special club study last year that was approved in May of 2024. Right after that, our design team hit the ground running. We filed the 4.1 site plan and other applications necessary to redevelop the property. And we started that site plan review committee process. We had our online engagement in August of this past year. We did a walking tour in our first SPRC meeting in November. We had our second SPRC meeting in December. Saw some of you there at the meetings and at the walking tour. And so we appreciate y'all's continued feedback and participation throughout this process. And so we were asked at one of the previous SPRC meetings to come here and give you all an informational overview of the project and where we are. And this is, as Kevin and Michael noted, the 4.1 site plan process, which is separate from that nomination process and the county's procedures. Those are on two separate tracks as the county treats them, and that's as I understand it. So we'll walk you through a general overview of the project. And near the end of the presentation, I'll focus a little more on our historic interpretation of the Nellie Custis facade, give you some zoomed in elevations, renderings there. So we'll start here with our render site plan. And just a little bit of background on the site. You all know this is the former site of the former Nellie Custis School, which was constructed in the early 1920s, 30s. When the county closed the school in the late 1970s, they now had this property. And Melwood's predecessor, the Sheltered Occupational Center, had a site up in Ballston where they were providing community services for folks with disabilities, educational, workforce training, and other services for individuals with disabilities. So the county and the Sheltered Occupational Center entered into a land swap where the county got land in the heart of Ballston in the Metro Center, and the Sheltered Occupational Center got this site, was able to use it for their programming purposes. Melwood comes into the picture 2018. They purchased the site. They've been using it for the same purposes, community services center, to provide valuable training and services for people with disabilities. So they do things like day programming, workforce training for people with disabilities, and then really geared toward providing a meaningful day for individuals with disabilities and help them participate in the community in which they live and become more independent. So as Melwood acquired the site, it's an aging building. They're looking at how to upgrade their setting. They see a great opportunity here to co-locate, partner with Wesley Housing, an affordable housing company, and create a new development to co-locate affordable housing with Melwood's services that they provide to individuals with disabilities. And so here we're creating an inclusive community where people of all abilities can thrive, and serving really underserved population in Arlington County, and leveraging that scarce resource of land that we have here. And so the proposal is to demolish the existing building, redevelop the site with a new 5-story multifamily building with space for Melwood at the ground floor. There'll be about 105 units. All of those units will be affordable. The majority of them will be family size units, will be 2 and 3 bedrooms. And then Melwood will have space at the ground floor as well as an outdoor patio for programming. And just in terms of site circulation, the cars will enter a parking garage here at 23rd Street South. And then, we can see. Yeah, cars can enter the site here at this driveway off of 23rd Street South. There'll be an entrance here just for loading for Melwood and Wesley. If you've seen earlier iterations of our project, you'll notice we've moved the main entrance. Previously, we had the main entrance kind of on the left side of the site near where that parking garage entrance is. After we've gotten valuable feedback from you all and the community, we've relocated that main entrance to be right in front of our historic facade interpretation on 23rd Street. And you can see in the site plan, we'll get into it more in the elevations, that we we've set this building back here and provided a really substantial second floor step back to highlight that historic facade interpretation and provided a similar landscaping orientation as the original building. Generally, this project will also upgrade the streetscapes. We'll provide wider sidewalk, more street sidewalk on 23rd Street. We'll be upgrading this bus stop here to make it more accessible, provide on-street parking, new street trees on 23rd Street and South Grant Street. As you come around the building here to the back, you'll see we've designed the building to keep the bulk of the mass away from Nellie Custis Park, because that's what we've heard was a big concern of the community throughout the site plan review process. We've also recently, we've revised the building to step back farther at the first floor here where this patio is. This will be a first floor patio for Melwood's use that's near their multi-purpose room. So participants will be able to utilize outdoor space as well as indoor space within Melwood. And then here at the second floor, this will be a courtyard that residents can use. Melwood participants will also have access to this second floor courtyard. And then looking at the floor plans, here's our garage floor plan. We're providing one level of below grade parking. This is the necessary footprint to provide the amount of parking needed to support Melwood and the affordable units above. We'll have 95 spaces. 20 of those will be for Melwood's use. The other 75 will be for the residents who will have some access to the Melwood parking spaces outside of the hours of their operation. Walking up the building here, again, if you've seen earlier iterations of our site plan, we flip-flopped the floor plan. So now coming in here off this main entrance, there's a shared lobby. This pink area is residential amenity area for Wesley housing. This orange color here, these are residential units. And then this blue area here, this is Melwood's community service use on the ground floor. It's about 17,000 square feet, and it opens out onto that patio in back. Moving on up the building to the second floor here, you'll see how we start to articulate the facade and create some and how we've set the building back from 23rd Street Grant, and we've really significantly set it back from the Nellie Custis Park side. We're providing these articulations here and here on the 23rd Street facade. We provided the significant building step back here, right above the school facade to emphasize that area. Another 8-foot step back here at the corner to provide a better sight line down 23rd Street to where the Methodist church is here on the other side of Grant Street. And then in the back, tapering down here. And as you see, as we go up the building on level 3, very similar footprint. Then on level 4, we step back again here another 12 feet at the park side. And we can come back to these if any people have any questions. I know I'm marching through relatively quickly. And we'll get into some zoomed in elevations and renderings of the Nellie Custis School facade. So I'll just walk through these elevations fairly quickly, but you can see here parking entrance, our historic interpretation of the Nellie Custis School facade. And then on 23rd Street, we're articulating the building so it has this rhythm here along 23rd with these setbacks here, here, and here. The main material on this building will be brick. On the 23rd facade, we have yellow Brendan brick with this mansard style roof to soften that top roof of the building. And then as you come around the corner on South Grant Street, we step the building back 8 feet. And then we've broken the massing down here through a different mix of colors and materials to provide a more vertical expression on South Grant Street. Come around to the back of the building here. This is the side of the building that faces Nellie Custis Park. And you'll see there's a very small portion of the building that is closest to the park, which is right here in color. And then the building beyond there is grayed out. Here you can see where that ground floor courtyard be for Melwood. And then if we come around to the western facade, this is where the site borders the property to the west of us, which is commercial retail building. You can see here in this elevation how we're stepping down toward the park as you go from north to south from 23rd Street to Nellie Custis Park here. Then I got several renderings. I'm going to click through these. Happy to come back to some of them. These provide you a good idea of what the building will look like in the context of the neighborhood. You can see how we're breaking down building articulation there. Here, this is a view down South Grant Street. You can see where we've stepped that building back 8 feet at the corner there to provide some relief. Coming around the corner again, how we've broken down that massing through materials and colors. Coming around the back, here's a view if you're in Nellie Custis Park looking toward building. And again, this last view here, it's a little bit hidden because of all the landscape buffering that we have in between the building and the park, but behind is the second level courtyard and that first floor patio from Elwood. And getting a little more into the history of this site, the Nellie Custis School was constructed in 1923 and had an addition in 1931. Those are the contributing portions of the building. And then it's had several additions after that have compromised the historical integrity of the building. You can see it in some of these photos here. On the top of the screen, these two photos here in the top left are historic photos of those original portions of the building. You can see these 30 light windows here. We think those were steel. We don't have confirmation on that. These basement windows here. You can see this main entrance that we've evoked through our site design and historic interpretation, and this canopy here. Those were all removed, later additions to the building. The stone cast surround was removed. The parapet was actually capped. You can see that here in this metal material. The sidewalk was removed. And then these windows were also broken down and infilled with non-compatible brick and more modern windows. So you lost a lot of that historic fabric of the existing building through these additions. And so here you can see our progression of the historic facade through our different submissions over this past year. As I said, we hit the ground running after that special glove study was completed. Our design team came up with a sketch of what that historic facade might look like in August. And then after we got a lot of feedback from you all in the community and SPRC through August and November, we took another crack at the design, and you can see the historic interpretation start to come through with stone base here, stone water table, mimicking that stone cast surround and central canopy, and these windows here. We did hear at that SPRC meeting that this facade was looking a little squat, horizontal, wasn't really evoking much of the Nellie Custis School facade. So what we did was we raised with our latest submission in this our latest SPRC meeting, we've raised the volume to give it that more 1.5 story look, and we've included these basement windows here, similar to the original facade. Provided these 4 bays here again, more similar to the original historic school facade there, and these proportions are closer to that original facade. And then here's some renderings, some more recent renderings. We're also going to relocate, I should mention, this flagpole, which was original and around at the time that the building was constructed. And here too, you can see how we're mimicking this original detailed canopy, the stone cast surround. We've got soldier course brick above these windows, as well as some soldier courses running here horizontally on the side. And that's our project overview. We're happy to answer any questions that you all have. Thank you for having us.
Question, do you have any streetscape views? Because this thing frankly looks massive. And it is a lot bigger than it's there, clearly, a lot, I appreciate you're trying to reduce the massing and step backs and that sort of thing, but it's still, once you get above that second level, it still looks like a massive box. I know you've got the indentations and everything, but if you had a streetscape, we often ask residential projects to do this, show how this project is going to fit in with the surrounding architecture and the heights and the massing of the architecture. And I only see the church.
So these are only the renderings that we have for you tonight. Through the special glove study process, the county board and staff recommended up to a 5-story building here at this location, with provided that there's appropriate
Up to
tapering toward the park and the neighborhood. And so what we've done is we've placed most of the mass of the building there at 23rd and Grant to provide a better streetscape, more urban context for that corner. We've tapered the building back toward Nellie Custis Park. Throughout the process, we've continued to refine the design of this building. And so along 23rd Street, like I said, we've got these articulations and the softening of that top floor of the building. And then as you come around the building, you have these additional step backs here at the first floor and at the fourth floor to provide this articulation, and then really step down toward the park. We've also go back to the rendered site plan in line with the special glove study principles. We're providing a landscape buffer there at the back of the park in between, at the back of the building, in between the building and the park to really screen the building from that area of the neighborhood.
Okay, we're gonna do the public comment before we go any further. Stacy.
Okay,
Come on up here.
Yeah.
I'm better at reading than speaking, so I'm gonna read my comments. Oh, I'm not a great public speaker, so
I'll time you and I'll let you know when time's up.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Stacy Meyer. I'm a representative on the SPRC for the Melwood project and vice president of the Roar Highlands Civic Association. Let's see. So aside from the specifics of the application, there's serious process conflicts related to the site plan amendment that involve HALRB, as Mr. Woodruff started to discuss earlier. In June 2024, HALRB authorized the county study required to designate Nellie Custis as a local historic district. However, the county has not completed the study, and meanwhile, the site plan continues to show demolition of the school. The county views the local historic district application and the site plan application as two separate and, by extension, unrelated processes. However, these two processes are now running in parallel and could result in a situation where the demolition of the school is approved prior to the study being complete. The possibility of this happening is likely since the county board will be reviewing the application in 5 weeks, with no time frame given for the completion of the study at all. It appears the county is attempting to bypass HALRB by delaying the study and allowing the site plan amendment process to move forward before HALRB can act on the local historic district application. It's highly unusual for the county to proceed in this parallel manner, which is probably why site plans don't usually come to HALRB. The rezoning of Gilliam Place for affordable housing did not begin until after HALRB acted. The county has given no reason for the differences between the Melwood site and the Gilliam Place process. The Melwood site plan review process should have paused to allow HALRB to act once it authorized the study last summer to be consistent with county process. Virginia 15.2-2306 was enacted last year in the wake of the Rouse site demolition to stop the county from issuing future demolition permits before a LHD application is acted upon in a situation like this. The Civic Association, Roar Highlands Civic Association, supports the application, the LHD application, and proposed an alternative envelope in May of 2024 in a nearly unanimous vote of 100 members that allows development on the site to proceed at an appropriate scale for the neighborhood while preserving Nellie Custis School, which is in occupiable and excellent condition for being 100 years old, over 100 years old. The applicant claims that because of Virginia LIHTC rules, they must build this massive structure. but has presented no evidence that this is the case. Virginia changed its LIHTC scoring system so that the old cost per unit incentive to build bigger is no longer a measure of competitiveness. And they encourage smaller, not larger projects in their rating system. The August 2024 HALRB meeting included an interesting discussion regarding Arlington 2050, and the minutes were posted online. We looked at them. At this meeting, most of the members expressed great concern of the numerous historic structures lost to development and the need to ensure that extant historic buildings remain in 2050. Here we have Nellie Custis School in front of us, which presents a unique opportunity to preserve a historic public building that is in excellent shape and one of the very few non-residential historic buildings left east of 395 in Arlington, an area where most non-residential historic structures have been demolished, not the least of which was Queen City, as you discussed tonight. Nellie Custis is now also under threat of demolition. If you were here in 1942, would you have done something different? Times change, but demolition is permanent. Will Nellie Custis School still be here in 2050? Will it be here in 2026, or will there just be a marker, as the applicant proposes, on a faux facade? That depends on whether the county and the actions of HALRB takes now to stand up for historic preservation and process and comprehensive planning in Arlington. Civic Association is asking, is it possible for you to raise these issues and get clarification from the county board's intent in relation to the site plan approval happening in advance of HALRB acting on the local historic district application? And a clear understanding how the county board views the 15.2/2306 law in relation to the site plan application. Most importantly, can HALRB ask the county to commit to not approving the site plan application that proposes to demolish this important historic asset prior to the study being complete? Thank you.
30 seconds. So if you-
Now I got it all.
Can I use that time to ask her a question?
um,
Just a quick question. Is it a fact that the local neighborhood commission is opposed to the project?
The Civic Association? Yeah, we are opposed to the project. We had a vote we've sent many letters that are on the website of the county for the Melwood Site Plan Project website and on the Aurora Highlands Civic Association website that discuss all of our issues with the project. We voted, that started in March 2022. We voted in May of 2024 for this alternate envelope to provide another solution to counties that, that wasn't provided by the applicant that could solve a lot of the problems for the Civic Association, including the historic preservation. That was voted on. We bounced out of the Zoom meeting at 100 people, and it was nearly unanimous. Then in June of 2024, the Civic Association took up the local historic district application and overwhelmingly voted to approve that as well. So yes, the answer is yes. You're opposed.
I have a question. Michael, can you clarify the new Virginia state law doesn't restrict site plan discussions, but would restrict issuance of demolition or building permits while the local historic. Is that correct?
So based on our understanding, you're correct that it does not affect the site plan process. There's no procedural mechanism that would require a local historic district designation to be finally considered by the county board before a site plan was formally considered. But the state legislation essentially says that this is our understanding of it, is that if there's a building permit or a demolition permit that is issued for a property that is under LHD consideration, that permit would not be allowed to be issued until 30 days after the board has considered the LHD designation. So that's our understanding of it currently. I will say, though, that I'm not aware of any instance in which that has been tested in the state of Virginia quite yet.
So if a site plan were to be approved, it would just be on hiatus for some period of time then?
not necessarily the site plan, but if they went for their demolition permit, then our understanding is that that law would get enacted and then to start that process.
Thank you.
Any more questions about that so that we can on to the site plan? Does anyone have any more questions or comments about the process? All right, let's make some comments about the presentation of the site plan.
Lauren, do you want to maybe share your slides again so that they have?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you could pull up the recent iteration of the
The
front, the 23rd Street
23rd
frontage.
Street element.
23rd Street entrance.
Where will the,
The close-ups of the, I know you had to move. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, these enlarged elevations.
Question, will the brick for the reconstruction, will that be taken from the existing building that's there now, or will it be sourced new, or what's the intent, I guess, for that?
Right, but this will be newly constructed facade with new red brick.
Okay.
To reuse the existing brick on the building.
Why is that? Not able to reuse it? Why is that?
And looking at this, in looking at the existing building, first of all, there's not much historic fabric left on the building due to these additions over time. I think the only remaining historic features are stone water table, limestone bell course, brick, and the tiered central parapet. That limestone has aged over time. With the brick, there's nothing unique about this brick other than that it is original to the building. It's just regular red brick, and so we've chosen to interpret the facade with new materials here. And there's also a substantial cost that comes with reusing the existing materials. And we understand each development project is different, has different considerations, but here that's not a cost of this project can bear. Though we did hear during the first SPRC meeting, Planning Commissioner Tinley Peterson did recommend that that we do donate some of the existing materials to groups who may want to reuse those materials. So we're open to that during the construction process.
Certainly a more sustainable approach.
Is there anything in this building that you deem to be usable in the new building? Nothing in that building can be used in the construction of the new building?
There is, in terms of we've covered the exterior. Let's see what I have. There's some limited interior elements of the building that could be salvageable, transom lights and door surrounds, some solid wood doors and existing blackboards. We're not proposing to reuse those in this project. We're open to donating them to groups who would want to come into the site and reuse those.
Lauren, I have a question. When were the additions that you keep mentioning? Like,
Yes.
what were the dates of those?
Yeah, let me go back. I think here.
I'd have to zoom in. I don't know if you can.
Oh, I didn't see that those were even.
Yeah, it's hard to read. It's just.
Yeah, so
Can you read those for me?
like that's what Scott's saying too, is that in the this 90s edition, that's where they infilled some of the existing entrance with that non-compatible red brick. So there's two different bricks there mixed into the facade, which also complicates the historical integrity of that material. But this exhibit shows you, gives you the breakdown of the different years of the additions.
I can't read it.
Can you zoom that, Lauren?
Can you just point it out, please? Oh, thank you.
Is that better?
Yeah.
1923 is the original construction. 1931, these two bays were added here. These two time periods, this is what's contributing to the Aurora Highlands neighborhood district. These other additions came later, and it's not just the building additions, as Scott was just telling me. It's those changes that were brought about on the front of the building at the same time. They relocated this former main entrance right here farther to your left. Right today, where the sidewalk is the main entrance. So they took out the canopy, they took out the cast surround. They infilled that area, removed that sidewalk and landscaping that was original to the building. And then those windows, they took out those original 30 light steel windows.
And when was that done? Do you know? The changes to the facade.
In 95. So the 95 project also is for the location of the entrance.
And it's hard to see, you know, we have some photos, but you really can't see it's difficult to see the main entrance of the building because of the landscaping that's in front of that area. But I'll just put these back up so you can see the original images of the school. And then here you can see what we're talking about, the windows. This brick was added, new. And now you've got mixed new and old here.
Is the center one, the 23 original building? 1923 original building?
This portion right here. And you can see on the left, the top left photo where this building kind of comes out right here. I think that is where the 31 edition was on either side.
But that middle photo is what shows you the original school, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to
Which is what you
try to
replicate in the entrance.
trying to equate the canopy that you're proposing with something, and this is helpful, but still doesn't quite give the same.
And I understand the main entrance is no longer there, and I do kind of like what you're doing with that interpretation. It does seem like the corner of the 1931 building, which you also kind of try to mimic, I think, at one point is still pretty much there and is still pretty much intact. And that is when I have a real problem with something's there and physical and could just be reused, being mimicked. Because then you're almost like tricking people in 10 years to think that like, oh, they did keep a little bit of the old building here. So I don't really like that when we're going to tear down a historic building, just build something that looks kind of similar that might kind of confuse people. And it would just be so great if, you know, the corner of the 1931 edition, you know, that's also fairly historic, even though it's not the original 1923. It's been sitting there for almost 100 years. I think, you know, and even the 1995 changes were made 30 years ago. So lots of people that have been around the site today, they think the building looks as it does now. So I think the arguments about there's been so many additions falls a little flat, because I think a lot of the additions are what people feel like the site is supposed to look like. I did have another question too on the setbacks. Yes. I'm assuming now, what are the setbacks now and what are the proposed project setbacks?
I think we have the original footprint underneath one of these floor plans here. So today the building will come forward a little bit. It'll be set back 20 feet from the property line and about 30 feet from the back of curb here on 23rd Street. The existing building, zoom in a little bit. You can see this green. I know it's faint. There's this green underline or this green dash line. This is the footprint of the existing building today. So the footprint's coming a little farther up on 23rd Street, very similar to where it is on Grant. On this side, we're setting the building back about 15 feet farther from the park than it is today on this on this portion of the building right here. And you can see I'll just follow my hand to follow around. This building today it comes back up, and then this is where the surface parking lot is. Right here, where we're going to replace that surface parking with grass, landscaping, and trees to buffer the proposed building from the Nellie Custis Park. And then too, I did want to note, just remiss in mentioning the historic marker that we've committed to through the site plan process. It's going to be in the site plan conditions. We have a potential location for it right here, which is going to be just off the main entrance. So, and we will come back to you all during that process to review the language and location of the historic marker, which should make it clear that the the new facade is an interpretation of the Nellie Custis School, and not so much a mimicry of the original architecture.
Was any thought given to incorporating the 1931 structure at the corner to the new building?
Because we have this underground parking garage, we're balancing concerns here from the community about parking, providing enough parking. Because of that, we're not able to keep the facade in place. We need to demolish the building so that we can construct the below grade parking and the building above.
Was there any thought to making the building less than 5 stories? I know that it says up to 5, but that doesn't mean it has to be up to 5.
And not the entire portion of the building is not 5 stories. It does step back at the second and fourth floors toward the park, which is in line with the special club study
But the height is still 5.
principles. And we've treated the building. We've softened that roof there at 23rd. We've stepped the building back at Grant and the park to provide some relief and tapering down to the neighboring community, as well as the park, which is in line with the special club study recommendations as well. And the density that we have here is enough space for Melwood to have a meaningful upgraded space for them to provide their day programming, as well as the classes and workforce training that they do, combined with an affordable housing project. All of this together is able to pencil out and inform a competitive low-income housing tax credit financing applications. We've got the right mix here of uses and density to make this project feasible in this location.
How long will the units be affordable?
The units will be affordable. There'll be a covenant on them for a minimum of 30 years. Though sometimes
Pretty short period of time.
that is typically, as I understand it, Taylor, renewed to be longer than that, 50 years. Also, we'll note that there's a couple elements really ensuring the affordability of this building in the future. The special glove study only recommends a rezoning and a site plan for a project that prioritizes affordable housing. And so you could not come in and build a building without having a significant amount of affordable housing, which we are providing. It will be committed affordable. 30 years, likely 50 years is typically the covenant term, and that's renewed. That should be through the life of the building.
Wait, the life of the building is 50 years?
Up to how long do buildings typically last?
So we're taking down a 100-plus-year-old building and putting in a building that's projected to last about 50 years?
It's a good question. I mean, I would say that we would do renovations and hopefully the exterior of the building would last 50 years. I don't know that to be the case.
I find that appalling. I'm sorry, but I really find that appalling.
I will note the affordability term is typical standard in Arlington County. All the affordable housing projects that do site conditions provide a minimum term of 30-year affordability.
Yeah, but there's some that are 99.
Yeah, I know. I worked on some projects for longer than that.
I think Barcroft's and others are an exception due to the significant county investment in that project. And I'm not sure
I'm
on any
talking
others.
about other ones, but
Yeah. This is the standard term.
You mentioned the marker at the front, talking about the interpretation. I know we talked about the elevation, but can you go back to the elevation in the historic images? What is being referred to as the interpretation and what is the straight mimic? Because I think a lot of it just looks like the exact same building. I don't feel like there's any interpretation of it, especially if we're not reusing any existing windows or materials.
This portion of the building here in the red brick is the architect's historic interpretation of the facade, and then the marker will stand in front of that to provide a descriptor, which we'll come back and discuss with you all. This is the portion here on 23rd.
So I think it was mentioned that they were potentially steel windows. Are there materials?
We think we have not been able to locate the original plans for the building. Given the information that we have, I think it's likely steel windows, but we don't know. And sorry.
Is there a material selection or proposal yet for what these windows are gonna be? I mean, is it storefront? Is it vinyl? Like what's?
I believe these are storefront windows.
Storefront on the ground floor.
Yeah.
Like,
Out of curiosity, are there so kind of like with Barcroft, how there are certain materials requirements for tax credits? Is it a similar situation here?
Here we're not pursuing historic tax credits. We're pursuing tax credits for affordable housing. They have some minimum design construction standards, which Taylor, I think, require you to have a certain percentage of brick to another type of material, but that's really about it in terms of materials. Though there are those minimum construction design standards that Virginia Housing has, which we've talked a little bit about on those other projects. Those have some materiality limitations, though not much.
Yeah, can we talk for a little bit about the process on how this facade is developed? Originally it was one story and now is it actually taller now or have you just?
Yeah, it's difficult
small
to see at this scale, but from the November to December submission, we did increase the height of the top portion there of this parapet to evoke more of that 1.5 story look that's there today. So we did increase the height there.
Okay, because is there a
yeah.
reason why you can't go to 2 stories? Because that's what the building is now.
Scott, did you want to?
It's not what the building is now. It's really a 1.5 story building because of the slope of the ground. So there's a basement floor and then a floor above it.
It's about 35 feet.
Yeah, if you were in what appears as the basement window or the lower windows, you could tell that you were below grade in much of that space in the Millwood building.
But
when it comes to what's above it, part of the problem that you run into is that that's residential space above it. So there's bar width considerations.
You're what?
The floor to floor, the heights wouldn't line up and you have residential units here with windows. So you can't make the building taller and it obstruct those windows. And then there's also structural.
But you're not suggesting that that's the height of the building now. The height of that replicated facade is not as high as the building is now, correct?
I don't have the exact one-to-one comparison. This was more to say that we increased the height to try to evoke that proportionality. What we heard in the SPRC meetings that this November version looked kind of squat and horizontal.
But it still does. That's the thing. And I appreciate that you made that effort to increase the height of it, but it still doesn't look right. It doesn't really it doesn't recall the original building. It's too squat. It's too small. If you could make that larger, it would look so much better. It would actually fulfill some of the spirit of remembering the old building. Right now, it doesn't. You know what it reminds me of? Did you ever see the movie Spinal Tap, where they make the Stonehenge? It's like too small.
Oh no,
that's what it looks like. I mean, yeah, really. I mean, I don't. And the fact that the floors don't line up, if you make it any taller, you can redesign what's behind that building to make it all fit. You actually get more room out of it if you make it taller.
To Scott's point, it is problematic because the office is on the ground floor in the leasing space that's built out of concrete. The wood structure is above, and the residential floor plate, to his point, which is about 60 feet for a double width corridor with units on both sides, is not as wide as what's below. So you would have to shift the entirety of the building, which would be a complete redesign of that corner.
Well, Lauren, can you?
Problem with that.
Can you show us the image where it's like you're standing on the street and you're looking at the 23rd Street? Yeah,
This one or?
yeah, that one was.
We have this
yeah,
one too.
Or the other
You
one,
want this
yeah,
one?
that,
Okay. Do you have a question on
I think it just gives you a different idea of how it
the?
fits in.
Mhm.
And this is the revised one, right? With the-
Yes, this is the most
Okay.
updated version. This is what we showed at the December SPRC meeting.
Does anyone else have any comments on this portion of the facade or any other text? I know few people haven't checked in. I did have one more question. The flagpole you said was original. Is the building lot coverage going, like the new building going to cover where the flagpole is now?
Can't remember where the current.
Well, and I do want to be
Yeah.
clear, the flagpole is originally located where there was a flagpole. We can't verify that that is actually the flag. We
Okay.
just know
The
that
location though.
the location of the flagpole.
Okay. Because I do think that would be a nice touch if it could remain.
If it could be in the same.
Open space.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's near your interpretation of the facade with the historic marker.
I'd have to look into that and see where the.
Touch.
Are you thinking of what kind of historic marker are you talking?
We haven't worked through what the design would be. That's something we have in the site plan conditions right now. That'll have to be approved by the county manager and reviewed by you all. It might be the standard, Lauren Ferris, that it might be I can't remember the name of it.
Tabletop.
Yes. Yeah, it might be a tabletop. It might be something else. Our architects will have to work on that as we get closer to demolition and construction of the building. So we'll definitely be back before you all to discuss that location and the design of that historic marker.
One point I've made in the past is that these tabletop markers last about 10 years, something like that, and then they have to be reduced. Okay, they have to be replaced. So providing you can look along the WNOD trail and you can see the ones that are 20 years old are almost unreadable. So I think that we should have as part of the site plan, they should also put some money into a fund to maintain these tabletop historic markers. And when I've made this suggestion in the past, I've been told, well, there's no fund to put them in. So I think it would be a good idea to try to get that started. And this may be an opportunity to start that fund and have the applicant put some money in there so we can keep it up for as long as the building is supposed to, even longer, even 100 years. I don't know exactly what you would do, but putting the marker there is one thing, but maintenance is another. And then it's up to the county or somebody else, or maybe you could even require that it may be maintained in the site plan also. But
I think
Is the marker in the site?
so. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lauren, but I think it would be you all maintaining the marker, right?
That's correct.
So it wouldn't be county maintaining it. It would be the property owners maintaining it in perpetuity as part of the site plan condition.
Right, the site plan condition requires us to have a marker there, so if something happened and it went away, it'd be in violation of the site plan condition, so it's it'd be upon the applicant owner to provide and maintain that marker.
okay, just wanted to make sure that that was the case. Okay, so
And I didn't know that they have a lifespan of 10 years right now. That's
Yes.
Interesting, okay.
well, in order for them to still look good after 15, you can probably
like
still read
rust
it. After
or-
20,
yeah.
forget it. So it really has to be replaced. That's one of the benefits of having the aluminum markers, is that they last a lot longer. They don't require as much maintenance, but there's
no pictures on it.
that you can't put pictures on them as well. Yes.
Okay, so does anyone have anything else?
I just have one other thing to say, which is I'm going to sort of reserve the right to make a motion on this at some point, not tonight, but at some point in the future. So to put the board on record one way or another, supporting this site plan, all the reasons that I have stated.
Would you like to write a letter?
Well, I think that would.
Maybe not you specifically.
That would follow the motion. Yeah, sure.
I think that is, if I'm understanding it correctly from Lauren, I think that's an option to the HALRB, is that you all could write a letter to the county voicing your opinions about the project. So I'll double check with Lauren, but she would coordinate with one of you, maybe you or whoever wants to do it. So
Well, I think I'll also want to make a motion. I don't know whether the board will support it or not, but it would be something to the effect that the county shouldn't be moving forward on one track while it's not moving forward on the other track. Set out in state law. When the board asks for a study, the study leads to a recommendation as to whether there ought to be an historic district. And that recommendation gets forwarded to the county board. That needs to happen. And so it needs to happen at least in parallel with the site plan process, because otherwise we're going to get whipsawed and this building's going to get demolished before we ever have a chance to present anything to the county board. That's just wrong. That's the way Robert Moses used to do it.
Saying the same thing. Whipsaw, yeah.
thank you all very much for coming and sharing the project. It was lovely to meet you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us. I'll probably see you guys shortly for more Barcroft. Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing about this? Sorry, you done? Richard, I'm a little troubled. I think there are two different issues here. I mean, I think there's the greater issue of right order of when things are considered, when they come to us and then when they get taken other steps. I don't think the law is completely clear about, and you said it hasn't yet been tested, about whether or not we have to conclude our deliberations about the historic nature of a property before the site process can proceed. Or does it just have to come before the historic board? I mean, the language is a little bit unclear. It doesn't say that we have to make our opinion, we don't have to take an action necessarily or come to a conclusion. Now, it may be that was their intent, and that may be what the court would say, is that it's absurd to just have it presented but not resolved as a pending issue. But I think that question is there.
I would argue that for the site plan, yes, but it does say that before a demolition permit is issued, there has to be a final decision.
Is that what it says?
Yes.
That's all right.
Okay, there has to be a final decision
On the designation.
on the designation of whether or not it's a historic property.
No, but that assumes that the designation has been submitted to the board by our board.
Yeah, the county board.
Right.
Our board never acts because we don't have a study.
Right.
That's their loophole.
Well, but we started the process. So
We started the
I think our
process.
process has been started.
Yeah, but I don't know that that's the relevant.
That's my reading.
Well, you're a lawyer, right?
I mean, I'm not the board's
I'm
lawyer.
not a lawyer.
Yeah, me either.
I'm happy to defer to your opinion because I prefer it.
I'm sure this will come up
Yeah.
many times.
I think.
So,
Yeah, it'd be nice to resolve it.
yes, it would.
But I also wanted to say before you all left that, there's two different issues here as well. One is historic nature of what is there, the design that's going into it. But I think, at least speaking only for myself as a member of this board, not on the historic questions, but on the goals of this project to develop affordable housing, perhaps not for just a short time, but for a long time, and to provide a place for Melwood is something I feel is exactly the right thing to do. So we just have to figure out how that can be done and still done with an appropriate nod to the historic property, if it's a historic property. And I still don't think we've resolved that question, at least not in my mind.
So it's not a uniform opinion of the board.
That there was one, that's right. That's right. Whether it's a historic property or not, right?
Michael, can you make
Funding
any
issue.
forecast of what the timing is of when that study might be started, or?
I can give you an estimate for sure. So the Nellie Custis School Building is third in our queues. There are two that are ahead of it. I'm working very hard on the first one. I'm hoping to have something before you all either next month or the month after. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed on that. That being said, that means that there's still one more in between that we have to study. So right now I'm looking at maybe being able to start the process for the Nellie Custis School one late this year, going into 2026, because it does take about 6 months to work on one of these. So that's the estimate right now with our staffing and with the other work plan items that we have.
Well, I think it would be advantageous and probably take a lot of pressure off the county board and everybody else if we had the opportunity to look at what's being reserved, being proposed as historic representation versus what's there now and what's there to save, how authentic it is. And I think that's would be useful at an earlier stage next year to compare to. I think the county, first step, maybe for to revise that looks so that this does not want as you suggested. I think that 6 months from now might be a lot more recent.
If the county or the planning process were willing to augment resources for you all, perhaps allow you to hire a part-time consultant who could help you with numbers 1 and 2, and then 3, or just 1 and 2, would that, I mean, I don't have any money to write you a check, but if it was made clear that this is delayed with the new law, this is going to be delayed until we get our study. The study is delayed for a year because of limited resources. If someone were to step up and say, all right, we're going to give you amount of money to hire a part-time contractor for 6 months or 3 months to complete these 3 in a queue, would that be beneficial, or would that make no difference whatsoever? You couldn't really do that.
I don't know, having not been involved in any of our budgeting conversations, I'm not sure what the parameters are, like what is allowed and what allowed are there. I can certainly mention it to Lauren as an idea, but I'm not really sure if something like that would be allowable or if something that has happened in the past. So I'm not comfortable making a definitive answer
Okay.
on the question, but I appreciate the line of inquiry and we'll definitely mention it to Lauren.
Question, would the parameters of the LHC itself be determined essentially during our vote? Like, for instance, if we said that essentially that that the historic portion, that the 1931 portion, the 25 portion, the like small portion, what was historic? Would that parameters be determined during our vote, or it's sort of preordained by? Have we already started a process of sort of like what's historic and what's not on site, or the entire site is sort of be the LHD, or how would that sort of shake out?
So my understanding of it is it's based off what is applied to. What was submitted in the application was for the entire site, which is what would be considered the boundaries of the local historic district. I will also say that I think from a architectural history perspective, it's better practice to look at a building holistically as opposed to piecemeal. And so I think that having, I don't know if we've ever had a local historic district in which you just preserve a portion of it and then not the other portion. So we have. Which one is that? What's different? Oh, well, that would sound an official local historic district. Yeah, but
No,
it's under.
Yeah, but in terms of defining, but it was requested that the entire neighborhood be designated as a historic district. And we chose only the designated.
Right, but not one building. That's what I meant, is like to take a building and say only this core part is preserved, not the addition. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm thinking years ago, something.
What we vote on is by recommendations of the study, and how what the study would recommend. Not testing the entire building, so only the most parts. That's probably what we would vote on.
Okay.
And I do remember when we did the Central United Methodist Church, I think the only local historic district is the little piece of the graveyard.
Right.
I don't think the church building, well,
No, the church was not. It was-
so was an instance where there was a larger potentially historic district and we just chose to, we were kind of backed into a corner and we settled on the little piece of the graveyard as the historic district.
I think we need to have the study, you know. It's amazing the resources that the planning department and the planning commission have devoted to the site plan process compared to the resources that are devoted to this historic.
Well, that was exactly what I was thinking. If the site plan process is one of the things to move along, there might be a way to do it.
Right, 20 people work in the planning office. 4 people work in historic preservation.
3 feet.
3. Therefore, a study that we asked for 6 months ago, 9 months ago,
It's 4.
still not.
Well, and I think we're,
And I know that's
we're
like,
on a bit
I'm
of a,
not blaming you, it's not your fault. It's like,
yeah, I mean, I think we're on a bit of a collision course with this. And so that's how the board feels. I think, you know, about whether it's specific to the site or kind of the process in general. You know, I think. Like everyone.
I agree with that. I think it's important that we point out that with this new law in particular, we're going to run up against this more than once. If it takes a year and a half to get a study that we need to be able to give the green light to developments coming along, that's going to continue to be a problem. And it's a resource problem.
It's hard to know what, you know, I think, had we had our decision on whether it was an LSG or not, I think we would have been better feedback tonight. So I think, you know, also, I would hope the applicants are also wanting some more guidance and resolution on this law as well. So, yeah, that's the thing. I think we can talk about it more, I guess. I don't know how.
I'll mention it to Lauren and she'll probably reach out to both of you. I'm assuming it'll be both of you. Nan, I know you were on the SBRC too, so if you want to chime in, I think that would be valuable. I'll let her know, and then she'll have a better sense of the timing of when that would need to be done by. I can talk to you guys about that.
Because I know, yeah, I mean, if it's specific to the site plan, we would know a lot more details, much more involved if we're talking more about the law in general.
It is a general issue, though.
Yeah, so
This is just the first.
I would keep it a general issue and not make it specific.
Yeah.
well, I mean, I think the timing of the project makes it, you know.
Or adds urgency. It adds urgency.
Right.
So, I think.
Is this still, the site plan is still scheduled to go in February?
Yes.
Actually.
Do you have a date on the motion again?
February 10th.
Okay, right, because it has to go to planning commission as well. You all did the RTA this.
Well, sending the notice.
Okay, got it. Okay.
All right.
We're really over now?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Thanks.
Oh, no, all good. Thanks, you guys.
Okay, the next on the agenda is the chair's report, and I don't have anything. I'm going with my first meeting as chair. Oh, my name's Kate.
Scribd by note. Oh, you're the new chair.
Yes, so
You're
that's
acting
why
now.
I'm looking at notes a lot,
Thank you, sorry.
but I don't have
Right, and staff doesn't have a report either. So, yes, happy New Year to everybody. Thank you for coming, and be so, for participating as much as you did in that conversation. Thank you.
Oh. All right.
Great.
Congratulations on a good first.
Yeah. Throw me to the fire.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Under control.
It was 99 or something, 60 years was standard.